So this is my 1990 Jeep Grand Wagoneer that I've been working on for the past, since July. I got it in July. Hey, King. So we're going to be doing suspension work on this now. But basically, eventually it's going to get a whole new rebuild, restore, whatever you want to call it. It's got 190,000 miles on it. Here's what the interior looks like. So I've done some work to it already, as you can tell inside. I put in ABS plastic for the door cards because the old ones were all mildewy and moldy. They were really gross. I pulled the carpet out and cleaned it. It can probably be cleaned more. The stock steering wheel was a piece of garbage, and so I put in this like aftermarket one. It's okay. I think the dish is too deep on it. It needs to be like half this distance. I think this is like 4 3/4 dish, and it needs to be like 2.5 or so. Otherwise, pretty much stock on the inside. But yeah, I did the door cards because they were all moldy, and so I've basically gone through the doors, took the cards off, fixed all the rust that was underneath the cards or underneath on the metal, and he thinks we're going for a ride. And I took the vinyl off because the vinyl was, the wood grain that was here was all cracked and nasty, so I took all that off and just put a coat of primer on it so it prevents it from rusting. So yeah, those turned out pretty good. Yeah, he thinks we're going for a ride. I redid all the lights on it. All the plastics are brand new. The original ones were all cracked and faded, and they look nasty. That's one of my biggest pet peeves is crappy electrical, and so I basically fixed all that, and it's got LEDs all the way around. And I put in the right flashers, the LED flashers that are underneath the dash to control them so that they actually work, because the old school style is like a thermal. Let's see, do I have those around here somewhere? Do I have the thermal ones anymore? Yeah, here they are. They look like this. So these are the stock ones. Wagoneer 552 12 volts. These only work through thermal, so you have to put enough load on them so they warm up and they actually start clicking. So if you put all LEDs, they just don't work because LEDs don't pull enough power. And so I put some proper flashers on it. Let's see, what else have I done? Interior, yeah, that's about it. All I've done is cards and cleaned it up. On the outside, I fixed some rust. So when I took the doors apart, there was rust on both sides of the doors, right in this area. And so I actually just like took it apart, and there's like a little metal tab underneath here. Maybe when we take the doors apart in the future, I can show you. But there's a little tab that goes all the way across that connects the two door sides together, and that was rusted through on both sides. And so when I had the doors apart, I fixed that by welding in some new steel, and then you can see my glorious primer job there to overspray. Let's see, in the back. Oh yes, so in the back, this is a Dodge Tacoma. No, not Tacoma. Durango. Dodge Durango motor and wiper setup. Seems to work pretty good. Everything in this tailgate, that was actually the first big project I did. The first thing in this tailgate was to get everything working in it, and I got everything working. So the motor that raises the glass works, the defroster works, that switch, which is notorious for failing, I have that retrofitted and working. The wiper works, and for the sprayer, so the original sprayer mounts here. I've got a piece of tape over it to prevent water from going in. That part is like impossible to find, and so what I did is I basically trolled Amazon to find some sprayers that looked like they would work, punched a little hole here, and then I ran the water basically up through the hinge with the wiring into here. So this guy sprays the whole windshield and actually does a really good job of it. I'm pretty happy with that. So it's a little bit not stock, but it works pretty well. Oh yeah, so after I got that working, the next thing was the skid plate for the, let's see if we can see it down here if there's enough light. The skid plate for the gas tank. So these are notorious on these FSJs to rust out. My original one was completely rotted out. And so I built my own, I'll post some pictures so you can see, but I built my own out of 14 gauge steel. You actually can see some of the leftover steel back there. Welded it all together, made my own little triangle mount, which you can see kind of, let's see if I can wiggle back in there. Let's see if there's enough light. Oh, maybe I can turn the light on this thing. Oh, nope, I can't. Anyways, there's a triangle piece in here that I had to build as well. So basically, I instead of fixing the rust, I just built a whole new skid, and then the e-brake cable on the side was all rusted through. And so yeah, that was one. Oh, there you go. There you can see it better. So you can see that skid, and you can see where right here is like where the fuel pickup is at, because it's a little bit lower. So I actually welded a little box for it. But yeah, that's pretty good. I'm pretty happy with that project. That definitely took a lot longer than I thought it would. And so let's go ahead and pop the hood open, which is where I've done other work. Okay, so I've cleaned up all the wiring. This wiring was all a mess. I think it actually caught fire at one point before I got it, because the wiring was just kind of jumbled up and melted and nasty. So I cleaned up all the wiring in here. As you can see, this is all new loom. Let me see if I get a light so we can see it. There we go. Now you can see. So yeah, this is a loom, all new loom. Redid all the wiring in here to make sure it wasn't going to catch on fire again. I rebuilt this canister. This is the fuel vapor canister, so it's all been rebuilt. I built a diaphragm for the check valve and all that good stuff. It didn't have this nice hose, and of course, the moment I installed it, I ripped it. It seems that that's like common with this kind of thin plastic hoses, they always rip, so I just put some tape on it. Let's see. The carburetor, it is a stock Motorcraft 2150. I've rebuilt it twice. The first time, so it never really ran right, so I rebuilt it and didn't run right again. And when I took it apart the second time to rebuild it, I found that the altitude compensator, which is on the back, let's see if I can find it, which is that thing. Let's see if we get this light. That guy right there, he was stuck open, and so the diaphragm, I think they call them anoids, was basically bursted, and so the carburetor just ran lean all the time, and so basically I made a blocking plate out of some aluminum, sandwiched it in there, and that fixed that issue. So the carburetor runs really good now. It's got an HEI setup for the ignition, mainly because that box over there, which is the stock ignition, stopped working. So something was wrong with that. The coil was fine, which the coil used to go right there. That seemed to test fine. It was that ignition box went bad. And for the cost of buying basically a new one of those, you can get a HEI set up. And that's been running pretty good for about 15,000 miles now. So I'm pretty happy with that. Yeah, so this is, I think, the original engine. So it's got 190,000 miles on it. It is definitely makes some noises. It has some lifter, I think, noise on this side of the engine, and it's pretty loud. Not super loud, like most people don't notice it, but I can hear it. And it's got some kind of like death rattle down low on the lower end. But eventually this will go away and we'll have a new engine. It also leaked like power steering fluid everywhere, and so it's got a rebuilt power steering pump. Power steering box has been rebuilt down there. New hoses. So this is like the only thing on this thing that doesn't leak anymore. Like, it leaks everything else besides power steering fluid now. Let's see what else we have done up here. Oh yeah, new water pump. The old one was kind of broken and gone. Like, it didn't have any veins on it anymore. So yeah, it's got a new water pump, new thermostat. The radiator cap here was leaking. It had a crack right in there, and this being a brass radiator, I actually re-soldered that together. I'll post a link to my blog where I kind of like detailed how I did that, so you can see how it's all nice and shiny from when I had to clean it. Let's see what else. Oh yeah, and then the heater box I had to take apart. It was full of leaves. Fixed that issue. That's pretty much everything under the hood. Yeah, it pretty much leaks everything but power steering. Oh, it doesn't leak brake fluid either, which is good. That system seems to be working pretty well. Let's see. Washer tanks are horrible. They leak. As you can tell, they're empty. Oh yeah, eventually we'll have to take this off because I actually put in sprayers in here. I don't think I have the original like crimped tube ones, but I actually built some brackets that go in here and mounted some like modern sprayers, so it actually gives like a mist on the windshield. It's really nice. Problem is these tanks leak, so you can never keep fluid in it. So eventually we're gonna, one of the things after we do the suspension, we're probably gonna fix that issue because that affects drivability. I like having working washers. You flush the system a lot, flush the engine oil because it was all gummed up. When I got it, it actually had like, it registered like 0 oil pressure. And then I actually drove it all the way from Dallas to Houston with 0 oil pressure. It made the trip fine. So one of the things I did first on the engine was to, remedy that. And so I flushed the oil a lot, dropped the oil pan, cleaned out all the sludge. It was nasty. And then I replaced the not fuel pump, oh yeah, it did get a new fuel pump right down there. Mainly because the old one was leaking fuel into the oil. So that was fun. Oh, sorry about the bright light, people. I took apart the oil pump and, oh, look at that, the oil pump's not leaking anymore. And I put new gears, I rebuilt it, put new gears in it, and put one of those steel backing plates in it because the housing was all scored up. And now it gets 45 pounds of pressure cold and about 15 hot at idle. So it's pretty good now. It has plenty of oil pressure. I'm hoping I didn't do any long-term damage driving it around with no oil pressure, but whatever. Let's see, anything else under here? I pretty much haven't really touched the drivetrain and suspension yet, which is, we're going to fix that because if you can tell, the leaves are pretty sagged and almost inverted. Actually, this side's not bad. This side is, the driver's side is horrendous. It's actually in the rear, it's all inverted, so we're going to have to fix that.